we were just catching up for dinner and we were talking about it. He's like, as a founder, like, geez, you've got to screw loose. You think for some reason you're going to be the 5% that's going to make it work, and like versus the 95% that fail. And the fact that you just need to have that blind conviction and just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing.
Welcome to the Success Times Happiness podcast, a platform dedicated to engaging discussions with inspiring individuals aimed at nurturing personal development. I'm Richard Thompson, your host, a father, entrepreneur, world champion Ultraman, and passionate about all things high performance. Our mission is to empower both ourselves and you to unlocking our fullest potential, recognizing that this life is no dress rehearsal. While I may not have all the answers, this show serves as our collective journey to uncover them. Today, we sit down with Chris Mihos, an accomplished strategist and serial entrepreneur who has transformed his unique perspective on business into multiple successful ventures. Chris has worked with top global companies from Pricewaterhouse to Levi's and is the founder and leader of Copypasta, one of the fastest growing crypto startups in the world. His story is both inspiring and enlightening as he shares the journey of moving from corporate strategy to entrepreneurial ventures, emphasizing resilience and the power of stepping outside of one's comfort zone. Expect to learn what we see to be the 5 non-negotiables to be a successful entrepreneur and what it takes to be the 5% of businesses that succeed in this game and not the 95% that don't. All right, let's get into it. Chris Mihos, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
You're welcome. It's good to be here.
Going back a little bit to sort of preface what we're going to discuss today, you go out with, a couple of bachelor degrees, business, commerce, then you go straight into almost like a really strategy and strategic positions in big companies, right?
Yeah.
We're talking Pricewaterhouse, we're talking Levi Jeans. You're going from being based in Brisbane to then Brussels, then the UK, and now you're in Singapore. What is it, do you think, that attracts you and has always attracted you to the strategy bit with business?
Yeah, I think it was some career advice I got from a family friend that was very successful. And they started at McKinsey, and his whole thing is like, if you want to get a real training ground, like a course for what the world is about, get into consulting, because all you develop is your skills and awareness. Because every project is different, every team is different, every company, every industry, every market. And so I think that was a catalyst for me, and was lucky enough to get into consulting. And yeah, I think I've been described as like a square peg round hole for like a myriad of different jobs, where developing those skills where you look at problems differently to create unique solutions is what just gives me so much energy. And I think I've been lucky enough to swing for the fence, and some of the shots have paid off. And the main, I suppose, underlying thread within all of that is, I think the best things in life happen when you get out of your comfort zone. Yeah. And so that's, I suppose, my LinkedIn profile, my CV will kind of epitomizes that whole process, where I think the funniest moment was talking to like one of the family owners of Levi's at a board meeting in Paris, and we're on a market visit. And he's like, why did we hire an Australian to be the head of strategy for Europe? And I was like, Pete, that's a really good question. Like, none of this makes any sense. Yeah. Going from strategy consulting to mining gas companies in Brisbane to in-house strategy for Levi's for Europe. And the consistent thread was, yes, getting out of my comfort zone, but then also focusing on skills rather than traditional sort of like, I need to be an industry expert. It's like, I need to be a strategy expert.
And sometimes you would imagine that it's a refreshing position for a leading company in whatever industry it is to get a fresh set of eyes. If your expertise is strategy, not necessarily the industry itself, but to be able to say, I dominate strategy. I don't need to know about textile or manufacturing, but I can help.
Yeah, but I think it takes a very unique person on the other side of the table to see that. Yeah. I've been fortunate within my career to lean into that a little bit more. I've probably applied for like 450 jobs on LinkedIn. I've got none of them. Right. It's generally speaking been through one contact that knows me. And then that's a catalyst to be like, okay, you should give this guy, a shot for an interview. You should meet him. And Mark Dumbrame, who was the guy that hired me from Levi's, he had that mindset of, I want someone who has an external perspective. And so, sure, I came from mining and gas, but I started an e-commerce business, which was tailor-made business shirts, where you measure your favorite fitting shirt instead of measuring your body, and you bypass that fit challenge and all of that. So I had hands-on entrepreneurial apparel experience, like, sourcing fabrics in Hong Kong. Couldn't speak Cantonese to the person, so I'm walking out of the shop with 150 yards of fabric on my shoulder going, okay, I need to get this to the tailor. I have no idea how I'm going to do this, but doesn't matter. So hustle. Yeah. Just, if there's multiple ways to solve a problem and you'll get that.
And I think also the person who's going to hire you across the table, like attracts like. Do you know, if you're traditional, if you're, risk adverse, you're going to find the strategist for your competitor in your industry rather than you need to look outside the box here and find that round peg for the square hole and to see if that works.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So I thought today based on your experience, it's about entrepreneurial, mindset. And I thought, and I haven't even posed this to you yet, is to go maybe 5 things, 5 traits, 5 skill sets that are invaluable and really important or non-negotiable to be successful in the entrepreneurial space.
Yeah.
Whatever aspect it is.
Yeah.
And we sort of go, you have one, then I have one, and then we can talk about it and see how, I don't know, that's what I thought.
Well, that sounds great. I mean, within tech, there's a first-time founder versus second-time founder mindset.
Okay. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So first-time founders add features to a solution and hope that it solves a problem. And so it's like building a house that looks really good and adding cool windows and adding this and adding that. And you just keep adding more and more and more going, wow, this is beautiful. Surely it'll work. And then it'll turn into a unicorn shooting diamonds, right? Like that's the piece. But where it gets to is you have this solution and you're trying to retrofit it for a problem. Never works.
Right.
And it's something that everyone will tell you up front. But when you talk to second-time, third-time founders, they're like, yeah, I learned the hard way. And if there was one piece of advice I could give to...
Oh, sorry, you're saying first-time founder is in your first founding experience.
Yes, as a founder.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You're in this industry and you go you become a founder of a business. You're only just basically attacking on...
You just basically go, okay, I'm going to build a product. I'm just going to keep adding this feature and that feature and that feature. And then second-time founders find a pain. And then they go, okay, let me really understand that pain. Who's it painful to? And I want to speak to them and I want to understand how a solution would solve that pain. And I'm technically a third-time founder, but I'd probably say I'm a second-time founder, right? So my previous startup was first-time founder mindset, through and through. It was HR tech. No one remembered the name. No one understood the problem and the solution that we had, right? It was very interesting, very cool, very sexy. But at the end of the day, it was never going to go viral. And we just kept adding more and more features versus copy pasta, which is what I'm running at the moment. We went viral with no website, no product, just a concept and a name. That's because the pain was so real for people. So I think that would be, if you can focus on the pain, doesn't matter what the solution is because people just want a solution.
Right.
It doesn't have to be sexy. It's just, if it solves that pain, amazing.
So first one for you off the bat is find the pain.
Find the pain. Yeah. Don't focus on the solution.
Don't focus on the strat plan or the bells and whistles of how you can make this even more profitable. Just
none of it.
Figure out what the problem is.
Yeah,
in the world.
Yeah, and I think
that you're trying to solve, right?
Exactly. I think I did a LinkedIn post on it, but I think the answer to the solution is the problem. And so you should just be so focused on the pain. Don't worry about the solution. And it's natural that people want to be solution focused. Yeah. Just channel all your energy to the pain.
I like that.
What's number 2?
Number 2 for me, it is. I'm going low hanging fruit here. Is teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have, no matter, I say this often, that nothing invented, discovered, or created was done by one person.
Yeah.
And everything that we use in life that are great innovations or businesses that we look at has been done. There might be a head piece, a head person, key person, but everything you need to do, you can only do with others.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much value to that. There's this, you can have the scarcity mindset of, well, this is all mine in terms of business. I'm the founder, I'm the person, and it becomes like an ego trip. Even if you are successful in that mindset because you've found the pain and you've solved the problem with a limited team, let's say, you're going to be enjoying it by yourself.
Yeah, it's miserable.
It is miserable, right? And because we've got bloody 18,000 years of evolutionary history where we're a communal species. We want to do things together as a culture, right? We want to be able to achieve together.
Mm-hmm.
And that bit for me is the journey. Like I'd rather have the same material outcome or success with others than by myself.
Yeah. 1,000%.
Yeah. Right. So, and then that's just a mindset piece rather than even the fact that the total is greater than the sum of its parts, and the fact that you have no idea what you're able to achieve until you have an incredible team around you. And then the shit goes to the moon.
Yeah.
Right. If you have everyone who's bought into the team goal and they feel like they own it as just as much as you do, then, that's when you are really limited to your own, like we are only limited by our own beliefs of what's our potential in our life. And as soon as you get this taste of what a team can do to that, then you're like, I've been playing way too small here in terms of my potential. Yeah. Right. Even like, then you do that exercise and you're like, okay, it's actually 10x what I thought. And then you go, fuck, if I brought in you bring in a better team or a bigger team or you have the foundations there and you're like, it's actually like 100x or 1,000x. Right. So you're like, that would be for me, number one. And it works beautifully because you want to achieve together, and you can't without it. So,
yeah, I mean, leaning into that a little bit, the head of Europe, this guy Seth Ellison for Levi's, he went on to become the chief commercial officer. But when we're doing the 5-year strategic plan for the first time in like 5 years, we were working through all this, and he had a thing to go like, when you get the team right, it's not linear; it hockey sticks. And so him and the team. And he would never say it was him. He's always like, it was the team. Because that's how he operates. He's like the most human person, a human leader I've worked with. And yeah, we took a $1.1 billion business to 25% growth per annum, which is wild. Yeah. And that's where it's like, when it clicks, it completely clicks. Yeah. My next one would be leaning into that is, okay, so you've hired an amazing team and they all believe that 1 + 1 = more than 2. I think the next ingredient is challenge. And so it's done a lot of research, or read a lot of research. I wouldn't say I've done a lot of research, but read a lot of research about this. And this is one of the things that I'm kind of brutal about is that treat me like I'm the dumbest person in the team because I want to hire people smarter than me. And if they don't challenge me, why are they in the team? And giving them that permission and psychological safety that we've got the best people here. We should be getting the best out of all of us. And in order to do that, you need to be comfortable challenging each other in a healthy way.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And it goes back to the relationship with your spouse. You want to have that same safety to be able to have, I can have a really robust, respectful, but robust discussion with you about anything, however trivial, probably more trivial the better.
And they know you really well, so it's very personal.
Well, sure, right? But I think it's the same blueprint because if you can create a culture where you can say like they have the safety to say I've got a problem with this, no matter how small, then they're gonna be able to be free to be who they are, and not walk on eggshells, not think that they can't bring up a topic. And I also feel like the more that is encouraged, the more that rope is strengthened because you've tested the waters. Like we've navigated how we deal with the stacking of the dishwasher in the office. So we can navigate anything. We've got this blueprint of going, hey, this is how we play these conversations. It's either around the board table on a Monday morning, it's knocking on your office door or whatever it is. But to say, rather than, I can't, like it should be, open always about anything.
Yeah, and it's a real challenge the bigger the company.
I bet.
And you see a lot of people that are more political masterminds. And so they say that they want to have challenge, but they don't engage in any vulnerable activities themselves.
Yeah, okay.
And I think in order to have constructive challenge, you need to be human and go, I don't have all the answers. Why do you think you're employed?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
I'm not going to tell you how to do anything. Don't always have to come to me because you're the smartest person in that field.
I think it continues no matter how big the company gets, but certainly in an SME, you're looked at as someone that should have the majority, if not all, the answers to any problem, right? And there is that vulnerability piece of going, I have no idea.
Yeah, well, like, I completely screwed that up.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, wow, it's okay to make mistakes?
Yeah, 100%.
And then
Correct that culture.
and I'm like, okay, what did we learn from that? Because this is what I learned when I screwed up X, Y, Z. And the guy that works on my team right now, he was like, do you mean that it's okay to challenge? Because in a previous job, they wanted that, and then people that challenged got fired. And I was like, well, if I'm telling you to challenge and I'm going to be challenging you, then buck stops with me. So therefore, I'm practicing what I'm preaching.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I love that.
Yeah, like you said, in terms of we're all human, and had someone on my team come to me the other day, and that person hasn't put a step wrong all year, and then has had this one minuscule thing, right, which has frustrated them. And, they came to me and I was like, oh, that's okay. Like, that's not we'll solve that. We can solve that together. Thank you for sharing. And
thanks for being human.
And exactly, right. And just go, we are all human.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'd jump on that as well is this idea of leaning into challenge or leaning in discomfort I talk about, which is a similar vein of you're encouraging challenge from the team because it's difficult to take on any constructive criticism, but that's what you're encouraging, right? And so by virtue of that, you're also trying to encourage the challenge or the discomfort in a role. Because if it was all easy, that's not what we're here for, right? Yeah. So they sort of talk I struggle with the beer commercial retirement plan or the self-sufficient, the financially independent, retire early.
Yeah.
If I get this amount of money, I'll be able to retire on a beach and have Coronas every day. And it's like if you're driven like we are, like entrepreneurs, you're going to be fucking bored.
Yeah. What is
after
it?
2 weeks?
Exactly. What is it like? Do something that you never have to retire from.
100%. Right. And that's the idea of this, right?
Yeah.
What we're trying, founders or entrepreneuring, that sort of mindset is trying to create that. Because it's just you want to solve the problem to then help fund the next solving of the next problem.
Yeah.
It's not I've done that one successfully. I'm done.
Yeah.
And so therefore, what you're looking for is the challenge, because if it was, you've just solved the problem, well done, there's been no hiccups, there's been no pushback, it's all green lights, here's your payout because you've sold off the company. You're like, okay, great.
Yeah, what's next? But
what is next?
I remember a guy that I'm mates with in Singapore, he started one bank. He was part of the founding team of Monzo, and then he's now starting the world's first programmable bank called Page Bank. And we were just catching up for dinner and we were talking about it. He's like, as a founder, geez, you've got to screw loose. You think for some reason you're going to be the 5% that's going to make it work, and versus the 95% that fail.
Wow, yeah.
And the fact that you just need to have that blind conviction and just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, I guess ties in really well to your experience from an athletic perspective of okay, I can keep going. There's more that my body can do.
Yeah. It is the blind conviction.
Yeah.
And I think that's not nothing. And I think that's that helps you take the day to day, to handle the grind and because you think you are capable of something truly unique. And that can be put into any basket, like business or sport or
Yeah, and it's a blessing and a curse, and it's not for everyone. And that's the thing where I think this sort of like our parents' generation were like, get a good job, stability, and then earn enough so that you don't have to work again. And I think our generation are in that pathway where it's like, that bores me to tears. Like, why would I want to do that? I want something that has purpose and meaning to me, and there's a journey in that challenge and all of that. Whereas, which one's easier? When I ask most founders, I'm like, okay, if you had your chance all over again, would you still do it? And the amount of people that go in like the shortest amount of time, absolutely not.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, just because it's hard, and you don't switch off because you're always thinking about solving one problem and doing other things.
Are they not wired that way from the beginning? Like
some bit like I don't know. I feel like I'm wired that way. Like
I certainly feel like I take humbled by the people who aren't wired that way. I'm like, that'd be
so good.
Like,
a mate of mine's a pilot, and so he got made redundant, and then he got into entrepreneurial pathways, and he's like, "This is fucking exhausting."
yeah.
And then he got back into being a pilot, and he's like, "It's great because when I get off that plane, my job's done. All I have to think about is when I'm getting on the plane again." And the clarity that he has, and sort of being in that alpha state of like just you're present, you're focused. Whereas part of the entrepreneurial curse is that there's a million problems that you need to solve always. And like I'm constantly thinking about 50 different things within the business of what I need to do, whether it's people, product, market, whatever it might be.
But isn't there a sadistic position that you bloody love that?
Oh,
so that's why I was surprised with your friend your friends going, "No, I wouldn't do it again," because it's like, I think you would. You just do it in a different industry.
Yeah. I think those that have been through the journey, there's people in different camps, and I think it's like some that have started 3 businesses and they've all failed, and then there's collateral damage of all of that, whether it's relationships, whether it's health, all that kind of stuff, and so I think it's glorified that it's just this amazing journey, and you have a unicorn that's just there, and you have this amazing exit and get multi-million-dollar payout and whatever it is. But the majority, it's like you're on the tools. It's a struggle. You're just constantly chipping away.
Yeah.
If you don't have that mindset of that resilience, like it's a blend of like optimism, stubbornness, and resilience to just keep going because you believe that next step, like just focus on taking another step, one step. It's not about quantum leaps. It's just if you're chipping away at what you need to achieve and you get there, and that's coming back to the pain, right? If you're not building something that doesn't solve a pain point, stop immediately. But if you know that it's painful to people and you know that you're getting closer and closer and closer and closer, you'll get there. But for some people, they don't have that cocktail of entrepreneurship that will get them there because something will break down. But it's a blessing and a curse.
Certainly my experience is that no result should be unexpected. So the best you can feel is sheer relief that the result has occurred.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
Because like a Usain Bolt win 100 meters. He does the bravado thing, but he would have replayed that 1,000 million times.
Yeah.
Right. And trained it for everything. And so it's not a surprise. It's more relief to be able to go, oh, fuck, thank Christ I got that done. Yeah. And I achieved what I knew that I could achieve. So I think in business you go, you strap plan enough, you budget it enough, you achieve it. With copy pasta, you'd be knowing that what next month or in 6 months or horizon 2 or whatever it is, that's where we are.
Yeah,
I sort of get frustrated if I'm wrong, and there's only one. And to go as in positive or negative. To go, why didn't I see that? Even if it's a positive, it's like, why couldn't I have seen that? What was blinding me from knowing that this would be better than I thought?
Yeah.
Or worse.
Yeah.
The relief bit. And then that's the curse, because you're working, like your brain is working every hour of every day that you're awake. And the best you can feel is relief.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. Like when we launched our recent version, everyone's like, wow, it's amazing. Like, what are you doing to celebrate? And I'm like, I'm not.
Yeah.
Like we're like, it's probably that relief.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I haven't really looked at it that way, but it's like, well, this is step 1 of 1,000.
Mm-hmm. I was speaking at an event the other week with some amazing humans, and one of the questions afterwards was, how do you celebrate the small wins?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you're asking the wrong person because I don't. How do you, are you just forward thinking? Are you just forward, like to your point of you saying, we've launched this new version of the site. Yeah, but it's then you're already a month or 2 or 3 or 6 ahead of where you are now, and everyone's seeing what you're doing now and going, I mean, you should celebrate.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone down that path of like celebrating the past, and there's, especially when it comes to product launches and things like that, there's a whole piece of like, if you're comfortable when you launch a product, you've launched it too late.
I love it.
So it's like there's a little bit of nervous energy with it, and you're like, I don't want to celebrate too soon.
Yeah.
There's a myriad of different things that can happen, but with this recent launch, it was like we intended to launch on the 10th of October at 10 a.m. 10 out of 10 out of 10 out of 10. Right?
Okay, go like that.
And we couldn't get there. So flipping that round, we got an 11 out of 10. So we're overachievers. And
good PR.
Yeah, it was just with the like lead engineer, and we're pushing everything out, and it's just more like, hey mate, that was hard, but we got there, and we should like, and he was just super excited about it. And see, I suppose the celebrations for me are more seeing the energy that other people are getting from this journey. So like that guy was just like, he's super proud of what we managed to achieve in the timeline that we did. And then I'll just have like little catch ups with, my wife or friends, and I'll be like, hey mate, pretty impressive.
With an 18-month-old and a wife at home, how do you, with your entrepreneurial brain that's always switched on, how do you manage to be in the moment at home and not with your head in work?
Yeah. I mean, if you ask my wife, she'd probably say, yeah, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I think what was a really good kind of discipline for me was early on, like, I think it's like witching hour, right? Like, just our daughter would be a little bit too much when trying to do bath time, bedtime. I'm like, I'm comfortable with chaos. Let me do that. And for me, it was almost meditative, because I knew every night would be having dinner, and then I'd do bath time and bedtime, and there's nothing else that I can be doing than that.
Yeah.
And so that was great. I love that.
Yeah.
But I think I'm like inherently a people pleaser. And so I need to consciously, and this is more reflection, like I've probably done it poorly, but I need to focus on what is going to give me energy, and how do I spend like some Chris time rather than constantly doing everyone else.
This is like talking into a mirror.
And so, I mean, it's comical because like one New Year's, wife and another couple of good mates would basically be like crowdsourcing what that one person should focus on for the next year.
Yeah.
So sort of 3 on 1.
Gotcha.
And we all know each other really well. And like, okay.
Intervention almost.
Yeah, quite literally.
Yeah.
And so their thing was like, you need to be selfish and focus on how, Chris is going to develop, and Chris time and all of that. And I was like, oh, but perversely, I get energy from helping others. So
I know.
it's this like
And
virtuous cycle.
I don't know whether it was for you, but a couple of years ago, that was said to me. And they said, what would you do now for yourself? I couldn't, like, and at that stage I was training full time, so it couldn't even be, I'd go and exercise because that was my job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a lot of that piece is like, go for a run or go to the gym, and it's like, I'm here. Like I get paid to do that.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of one thing that I would want to do that would fill my bucket up for myself.
Yeah.
In a most positively way saying, in a selfish basis. And that was a real problem that was a real issue for me at that time to go, that's a problem.
And have you cracked it? Started law
started a business, another business, and just sunk a hell of a lot of time into that as my vice, I guess. But no, and I take your point as well about the bedtime, bath time thing, because I think the way that we're wired, which is a blessing and a curse as well, is like it's the opportunity cost of time in your head about what you could be doing with that. Like, and it's probably I'm a sucker because if I go for a surf, I probably will be better I'd be a better human.
Yeah.
And could think more clearly.
Mhm.
Now I'm not training as much. I do go for a run for myself, which is beautiful. And I go
Yeah.
for a walk, and walking has been really meditative as well. But you have that space, you probably can clear out a lot of your thoughts and be more more decisive with work.
Yeah.
But when you do have this period of time where it's actually blocked out from being at all productive with your company, with your business, there's relief. There's a slight relief to go, yeah, okay, from now on, in the next hour and a half, I'm doing bed, doing the bed routine.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's great. That's lovely, because it's not really my choice in the sense of I'm not deciding to turn Netflix on for an hour and a half and waste an hour and a half of my time.
Yeah.
I'm actually dedicating it to my kids.
Yeah.
And I'm out of work.
Yeah.
And it's perverse, because it's like you need an excuse to be out of the mindset of work.
Yeah, and I think that's part of, I suppose one of the biggest learnings for me is if we look at the 9 to 5, like that our parents' generation of like get a steady job, work your hours, earn enough and retire. I think for me, through this entrepreneurial journey, I've worked out the difference between quality time and quantity of time. And so I can solve something in 30 minutes of quality time when I'm just thinking in the right headspace and I've got enough energy. But it might take me 5 hours to persevere when it's not high quality. And so sometimes I'll have like a 15-minute nap, and then I'm golden.
Good.
But then people are like, "You're sleeping during work hours?" I'm like, I'm in tune with my body and my mind of what's going to allow me to operate and achieve.
And to be able to know that you are in that 5-hour state, so there's no point.
Yeah, don't push it.
Don't.
Go for a walk.
Exactly.
Go,
have a nap.
Yeah.
Change your state.
Yeah, exactly.
To be in that half an hour express mode.
And I remember in my previous startup talking to someone about like from all this research, and they were saying like alpha state, because a lot of people have their best ideas in the shower just before they're going to sleep because they've switched off.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you get into that state?
Yeah.
Where you're so clear.
And you're right. The decision making is like
there's
next.
no noise.
Yeah.
I really had to change the way I describe that. I used to say I came up with my best ideas just before going to bed, and everyone's like, hold on. But yeah, it's knowing yourself and what gives you energy versus takes your energy, and how you can get to that state is key.
All right. Number 4 for me, I'd like to talk to you about risk management or risk tolerance or risk appetite. I mean, my journey is, as an athlete, I was wholly in control of that risk bit. So I didn't really see it as a risk.
Okay.
I mean, more of a long-term play is sort of, what does the financial position of my life look after sport? That was the risk, the opportunity cost of the time that this next 3 or 4 years are taking. But in the moment, in the sport, like if I get beaten, that's because someone's better than me, not because what I could like everything that I could control, I did, and I took full autonomy on that and an agency. But going into business and signing a lease and having a full payroll from the beginning, it wasn't as if we started with just me and it just grew slowly. It was like, and and this is just a small business, but still it's not nothing for me. And we had probably a potential bleed of 6 months.
Okay.
In terms of what was available in the bank.
Yeah.
So if the phones, I tell you a lie. I'd say if the phones didn't ring at all, we had 3 months.
Yeah.
And so,
which is scary.
100%. And I've signed a 5-year deal, 5-year lease, and all the things, right? So the only and I did all the different calculations and everything, and there was still an X in the equation, the unknown of how much work is going to come through the door.
Yeah.
And that there is the leap of faith, that risk that I wasn't, in my previous life, was never prepared to jump. But then I was like, okay, change of attitude, change of mindset. The more people I got around who are in business and successfully in business were like, that's always going to be an unknown.
Yeah.
But we do it anyway.
Yeah, completely.
So how do you deal with, how have you managed, because you've sort of played 2 different lives. You've played in-house strategy, in-house management, which is somewhat safe.
It's completely insulated. I mean, like you could lose your job tomorrow. And you go, okay, sure. And I've had that experience as well where I got made redundant and I was like, wow, okay. this is a kick in the balls. This is the first time that it's not my decision,
Yeah.
which is quite humbling. But I think the number one asset that people forget about is themselves. And so, worst case scenario, you can do a myriad of jobs. If it really gets that bad.
Yeah, for sure.
And so you just need to swallow your pride and you can do it. Yeah.
But now in the startup land, in the founder land, in your own thing, there's risks everywhere. There's dragons everywhere.
Everywhere. And I think the hardest bit is predictability. Every business is unique. So like from a services industry, it's like you don't know where your next meal is coming from. And so you got to be out there and finding that opportunity and client and all that kind of stuff. I mean, for us, it's like we have pretty much a binary product. It either makes people money or it doesn't. And so, yeah, that's a challenge in itself. I think for me, I'm very comfortable with risk. And I don't.
How do you play it? Do you go in your mind when you're launching this or like copy pasta or you do whatever you've done in the past? Do you go, what's the worst case scenario and then work backwards? How do you insulate? Do you have a backup position? Do you?
I don't go down like what's the worst case scenario, because like one of the worst pieces of advice that I got was like, before you start it, think of the thousands of things, like focus on everything that could go wrong just to make sure you're covered. I'm like, if I'm going to do that, then everything, then I'm never going to make sure everything goes right. And so the bit for me that keeps me going is like, is there validation? Like, is there a market for the product that we want to build, and how like convincing is that? And so
which is back to your first point,
pain, right? Like if
is the pain strong enough?
Is the pain strong enough? Is the market big enough?
Yeah.
And
does this solve it?
Yeah. Does this solve it? Is it feasible that we'll get there? Because even if it doesn't solve it, this is a little bit controversial, but it's like, if the pain's big enough and the market's big enough, you can get funding.
Yeah. People will
connect to that pain and be like, wow, like I get the solution. That's going to be massive. And I guess I have good days and bad days, but you just got to back yourself. And I'll go to conferences and be like, okay, I'm going to get cash. I'm going to get funding. It might be at 2 a.m. at like a side event at a nightclub or whatever it is. Yeah. Does it like someone's like, holy shit, that's what you're doing? I'll start with 100K and see where we go. And people are like, what?
Yeah.
So I think if you've lost belief yourself, then you're doomed.
Yeah. Accept that.
And
sure.
Yeah, I'm probably too comfortable with risk to say like these things have a way of working themselves out. And there's always a solution, and I think operate really well under pressure.
When do you decide to pivot or persist? When it gets when you're in difficult moments or difficult chapters of any business, when would you go, this needs to be? How would you know? Is it intuition, or what are you looking for to make a decision of, no, we need to keep going with this because that's the correct way, or actually we need to pivot, even if it's for the maintenance of the business.
Yeah.
Not to suggest you just liquidating it, but to go even any direction. If we're going one direction, how do you make a decision? It's better off if we go that way, or it's better off to stay where we're going.
Just like I check myself, ask other people, get different sound bites. So like people that I trust. There's actually there's a really difficult customer that we have. He knows exactly who he is, and that's his style. And so he's like, it was a real pain when we launched our first product, and he's like, I'm going to give you some frank advice. I'm like, I'm counting on it.
I like that response.
Yeah. And if they are happy, I'm like, okay, that's great, because they're the harshest critics. And there's people that I go to and I'm like, I know they're not going to bullshit me. I've got some friends that are, super risk averse, and I almost can't go to them because I already know the answer. But yeah, I'll look at it myself and go, am I forcing this? Is this a bit too hard? Because sometimes when it's too hard, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, with different products, we'll try something and we go, okay, we're going to time box this. We've got 2 weeks. If it doesn't work, off we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't say I have like a detailed methodology of what I'm going to do. It's more, I think I've learned enough lessons, been through the trenches to know like when it's not working, it's not working. And so divert resources elsewhere.
Like that. All right, last one. Over to you.
You touched on the teamwork side. I think the piece with this is just hire people that are smarter than you are and lean into that.
What's your tips on leadership?
Be human, be humble. Because if you don't have those, actually, okay, let me lean into that a little bit. Be yourself. Because when you meet people that are trying to be someone they're not, it's so clear. And you're like, you're fake. No one's going to want to work with you. I don't want to work with you.
Yeah.
And so if you're not comfortable being yourself, then you're never going to get the best out of yourself, or other people aren't going to get the best out of you. And that's where I get questions of people like, it feels like copy pasta is quintessentially me as well. Because it's meme worthy, it's a bit of fun, but it's very serious and it's very innovative and all of that. And it's like, well, I love talking about copy pasta, and I love having like quirky t-shirts at conferences, and people laugh at that and want to talk to me. And I'm like, yeah, this is like, I connect personally with this. I've actually had these challenges. It's an idea, it's a business, but I'm deeply connected to it. And that's where that authenticity is really important.
Be authentic.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another.
That's a better one. Yeah.
But I think you're spot on. And it's like, I was listening to a pod somewhere else that was like, it's like you lying on your Tinder profile about some characteristic of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And what are your options there? You either have to pretend, see the person falls in love with you, of who you're trying to be, your avatar.
Yeah.
And then you're in this bind then to go, well, I either have to pretend who I'm not for the rest of my life, which is so exhausting and not sustainable.
Yeah.
Or I be who I am and she doesn't love me because she loves the avatar. So wouldn't you rather just be the person who you are, be authentic?
Yeah.
And then you will attract the people that you need to attract for your team to create the business to go to the moon.
And it's like, it's amazing, like, how attracted people are to authentic people.
Yeah.
Because it's raw, it's human.
Yeah.
Like, and
but I get it. Like, there's so many good books out there. I've just finished Jim Collins' one, Good to Great.
Yeah.
And like, there's so much about this is the leaders of all the really, really great companies. These are the attributes of the leadership, and and authenticity is one, but by virtue of picking apart the characteristics of the traits, you're sort of trying to model, you're trying to create an avatar that may or may not suit who you are as a human.
Yeah.
But I accept that. I think being authentic, being who you are.
Yeah, and then accepting others that's who they are.
Yeah.
That's the, like, I want people that are their competency is better, like they're much smarter than me.
Yeah.
But I need to connect with them based on
Let
who
them
they
be
are.
who they are.
Yeah, exactly. Don't push them to fit a mold, because then they're going to, like, basically, if you look at energy flow within an organization, right? If people are coming to work and the people they work with are taking energy from them, you're doomed. You want to go to an environment where you might have no energy in life and you come to work and you get so much energy. And it's that weird scenario where you're working 16-hour days. And this is what it was in consulting. It was like you're working 16-hour days, 6.5 days a week. But it doesn't matter because you're doing it with great people. Versus if you had to do it by yourself.
Or with people you don't like.
Oh, exactly. The worst.
Yeah.
Life's too short to do that. So, yeah, authenticity, but really leaning into the fact that, everyone's different.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
Impromptu top 5 things with Chris Mihos. This is fantastic. All right, before you go, 5 quick questions.
Yeah.
Number 1, what does success look like for you?
So I went down this journey after being made redundant, and I kind of was like, okay, hold on, I need to think this through. And so there's 2 things that are really important to me. It's flexibility and happiness. Flexibility to me is financial, physical, social, geographical. So financial flexibility, that I can get myself to a place that I can do anything that I want to that's, going to be fulfilling. Social is, I don't have to say no to anything that I want to say yes to. I've got that flexibility of the people that I'm with. I can engage in all sorts of different social constructs, whatever that looks like. Physical is like more not just lifespan, but health span. Like my body allows me to do all the things I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And geographical is wherever the opportunity is, it doesn't really matter, whether that's personal or professional. And I've kind of embodied that a little bit within my career, and where we live and travel and all that kind of stuff. So that's it's less about what I'm doing, but the ingredients which allow me to live a fulfilling life. And there's that aspect. And then happiness is good.
What's the next question?
Yeah, what's the next question? Yeah, good times with great people.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of synonymous with who I am. Like everyone goes, "Oh, you're just such a great networker." I'm like, no, I just like meeting people.
Mm.
And I think you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, so choose wisely.
Mm.
And I think over the years I've become more selective. Like, okay, am I having great times with great people? Are they great people? How do I curate that group so that
and having the understanding you have control over that.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they're with you for the last couple of years or your friends or your network doesn't mean they have to be there forever.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the best experiences with people I've just met. It doesn't matter. And even like a street cleaner in Singapore where we live, he's just like every morning, he's like, "Oh, hey, how are you? Have a great day." And I was like, God, I just get so much energy from this guy. He's just such a legend. And that to me is like they're a great person. Doesn't have to be that I spend 6 hours. It's like I just want to be with people that coming back to the 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah.
Or more than 3.
Book you'd recommend?
No Rules by Reed Hastings.
Okay.
It's about Netflix. So it looks at the construct of teamwork and the journey they went on.
Yeah, right.
And it flips so many different things that conventionally you think about how startups should be run.
Okay.
So the interesting piece within that was at one point in the journey, they just hired too many people and they had to lay off 30% of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And they became more productive with less people.
Yeah, okay.
And so then they realized that they need to have talent density. So less people, more talent. A couple of different things within that of like, I think it's called the keeper test. If you wouldn't fight to keep someone, why are they there? And so they have this premise that like, yeah, acceptable people get healthy severance packages because you just want amazing people.
Yeah.
And then the other piece within that is like,
whereas amazing people don't get the choice. They don't get the severance package.
No, because
they're too good.
They're too good, and they would never want to leave.
Yeah,
because they're working with the best people.
Yep.
And amazing people want to work with amazing people, and that's where you get that hockey stick.
Yeah.
And the other piece was, okay, so we've hired in order to attract the best people, you got to pay above market.
Mm-hmm.
So they pay well above market. And I've talked to people at Netflix about this, and it's ruthless, but it fits a mold, right? So if you get approached by a recruiter, they'll actively tell us, okay, we'll bump your salary because that's what the market is saying you're worth. But so you hire the best people and they're with other people. And so the thing within that is like, don't try and control them. Just give them context. And so they would actively talk about like context versus control. Like you've got agency to just go and do what you need to do. And anytime you feel that you're not, tell us.
Yeah.
And so they were the pioneers of unlimited leave.
Yeah, right.
Because they're like, well, you're telling us to just manage our work and everything, but we have to fill out all these forms and say we're going to be away and like, this is ridiculous. And they're like, yeah, fair point. And famously, Reed Hastings was getting all this like bad press. Like, how can you do that? But like, how do you know people are working? It's like, we don't have a clothing policy, but people don't arrive to work naked. Right. So I think, I don't know, it breaks apart different stigmas of traditional versus unconventional. So yeah, that would be a good one.
4 people you'd invite to dinner, not alive or dead, but not family and friends.
Billy Bean, which is, I don't know if you've seen the movie Moneyball. So yeah. So it's the manager of the Oakland A's.
Yeah, okay.
So it took Bill James's approach and like taking a team that had the smallest budget in the league to then think differently about, okay, how do we achieve these outcomes versus everyone else looking at players. We need to aggregate it and think differently.
Yeah.
So there's kind of adversity in that teamwork element. Jackie Robinson, who's the sort of black player, did very well with New York Yankees and went through a lot of adversity within that to then
Feeling a theme here.
Yeah, like as in those that have gone through adversity to achieve great things when the rest of the world didn't see it that way. So looking at problems differently, looking at opportunities differently, and backing yourself to get after it. And then I think on a very different pathway tied to that theme, I think the other two quite traditional answers for a lot of people, but I think tied to that would be Nelson Mandela and Steve Jobs, because different pursuits of what success would be, but in very different ways. And so I think it would be amazing to get those four people together and I suppose there's a bit of a split of race and because of cultural exposure, which would just be a fascinating conversation to see where it goes and say, you know, given the problems the world's going through at this juncture, like how would you look at solving them, and when no one believes that that's what it should be. So yeah, I think that would be fascinating.
Great answer. And then finally, a guest that you think we should interview on the show.
I think there's two, so I don't know if I can go with two, but there's a mate of mine, both these are mates of mine in Singapore, but one guy, Andrew Collins, he's a serial entrepreneur, and you can see it. Like, and he founded a sports media marketing agency in China called Mailman Group, and that was acquired by Endeavour Sports, like one of the biggest sports companies in the world. And he started this thing, which has become quite a anchor within our way of life of Singapore, called the Ice Bath Club. It sounds really simple, but it's just a cafe community that is created by getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
Okay.
And he did some really pointed things. He's like, I'm going to remove the need for private bookings and remove a time slot, like private suites and time slots. We're not having those. It's just going to be full flexibility and community.
Use it when you want it.
Use it when you want it. But the best thing about when you get uncomfortable is when you do it with others. And so he sort of took that entrepreneurship flavor to creating that community when other people said it was never going to work. So that guy. And then just someone I really respect is a guy, Alex Panovic, he created the Bloomberg of crypto.
Okay.
And he's our first investor in Copypasta, but met him through a New Dads group. And so our daughters are very similar age. And I just think his mind of teamwork and looking at problems in different ways is quite fascinating. I think the success and happiness and what he's managed to achieve and the journey he's been on through crypto as it's gone through extreme highs and extreme lows, just a very interesting guy.
Might have to get you connected.
Yeah, sure. Definitely.
Sounds good. Chris Mihos, thank you so much. And you come to Australia once a year, so it's nice to have you in this time, and all the best with Copypasta.
Thanks, mate.
It's going to go to the moon.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah. Cheers, mate.
Cool. Thank you.
That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. If you know anyone who's starting their own business, feel free to share the episode to them. It really means a lot. Until next time, peace.